I'm Natalie D'Adamio, and I dare you. I dare you to take another side in maybe your artwork or your life. I dare you to show up to that moment, to stop telling yourself that old story, to rewrite how you want your life to be, and to live more fully into all of your expressions. So in this video, I'm just going to be walking through one of my sketchbooks and talking about a little bit how my practice is changing within the sketchbook. And it's a little daring there to show and reveal aspects of it because it is personal, but yet what I'm looking to do is create art from every situation that's ever really affected me. And it's not always pretty, right? And so that's the thing. We can dare to go into these places and spaces that maybe we've been resisting or we're afraid of. It's all about you driving this vehicle and deciding what you want to do and how you want to show up in life and how you want to show up in the work. And maybe something's in the way, so you want to dare to look at that side and just really admit to yourself that this is really in the way of moving forward, and I need to make reconciliation, at least with myself, right, and find that inner light and peace within it in order to move forward. And that's what I'm here to help you do. Hi, I'm Natalie D'Adamio. I'm a mixed media artist, an intuitive creativity coach, soulful guide and creator, and it's all about finding that vibrancy and that color, that light in life. And we can do that by sharing our stories and daring to share different sides of an experience, and also like learning how to move that energy and emotion into art making, creativity, and creation. And that is exciting to me because I know we can have a transformation because I'm here living proof. And I say that with all humble honesty. It's not been easy to be here now. There's been many challenges and pitfalls and detours and explosions, like I always like to say. But I know that we can turn up through it all and learn how to create and learn how to anchor that energy and align back to our internal presencing. So also in this video, I'll be exploring one of my sides, which is more of like a childlike side. Little doodles and drawings that like to come out, sometimes words and text. And you know, I've been letting that side out more, not necessarily in the larger work, but in, you know, the sketchbook and on these loose pages. And now I'm starting to turn that into a new idea, and that's exciting. So when we like allow ourselves the opportunity to just express like one of the sides that maybe we've been hiding, or maybe we felt too unsure of, or didn't know how it fits into the grander scheme of things, we can really step forward into more creativity by opening that side. And that's what I'm interested in. When we don't hide a side, because of like all that fear and judgment and whatever we're holding around it, and just allow ourselves to express that, you know. So it could be like just using different colors. It could be just making different marks that you never make. It could be like activating words, or like that childlike drawing side, or something that feels like a little bit off or even taboo to you, and that is gonna look different. So in this video, I'm just gonna walk you through some of my sides and my sketchbook and a little bit of my process, and we'll dare each other to go a little bit further and a little bit deeper into the experiences in order to gain, you know, insight and clarity and even like a release. And it becomes a great relief when you finally don't have to hide a side. So let's get started. So this is my one of my sketchbooks. I started it when I went to Santa Fe last summer in an artist residency. And then it's just kind of been evolving since that. It's personal. I like to write in my sketchbook, and I've been starting to use a lot of more text and experimenting with writing text and then wiping it out. It's almost being able to express what you're feeling, but then, you know, covering it over, because maybe you don't want to reveal everything, but you only want to reveal certain parts. And then that concept can really apply into art making as well, like in your larger work. So a lot of it is being driven to have it be very emotional and allowing all the expressions. And I don't really see the sketchbook as separate from the artwork. I see it just as an extension and a crossover. I think sometimes we make the mistake of thinking, oh, it's only this and not that, but really it's a broadening of the experience that we can create and move like the energy and the emotionality into the other work. Sometimes I wake up with 2 a.m. ideas and I write it down. And dreams. Well, this is just where it's at. And then now I thought today it would be nice to just make a page so you could see what's going on with that idea. I'm looking to just kind of always engage my practice in the morning, and in some kind of fashion, if I can't, or even if I don't feel like it, I put something down. Or if I don't have time, I just want to be curious about what's inside of me today, what wants to be, explored. And sometimes I don't even know, right? I just, color, is so soothing, and it could just feel good to put the color on the page with like no explanation. And so the less you're thinking, and you're just moving with the energy and the motion, kind of grabbing and going, then there's like this opportunity to kind of see what's in between the spaces. I don't know, reading between the lines, right? So we can read between our own emotionality and energy. It's kind of just investigating the moment. It's not really these pages are eventually going to start to just translate naturally over time. And when you're daring to go into a moment, or just give yourself an experience, it doesn't have to make sense, right? So that's when we're experimenting. And maybe, see, now this paper I'm using to wipe the paint, but I might rip it and start to play with it in a different way. So it's kind of engaging all of those senses. So we're just like seeing what's in there, right? And getting curious, kind of opening to the moment in the morning. But it's not really taking that much time to think about it, and maybe things will arise out of the process, and then sometimes this small work will lead into like then me working on a larger piece. But it's just about having this moment, right? And then you can always have another moment. So it's not really defining it too much. Of course, there is information here. So when I talk about daring to go to another side, it can really be anything, but maybe it's a side that you wouldn't necessarily bring out in your art, or maybe you feel scared or timid, or like, oh, if I do this side, I'm not really sure what's going to happen, or if I share this side, I'm not going to know how it's going to be perceived, or I don't make this kind of art, so maybe I shouldn't, do that. But I'm just talking about opening up to all sides, and here are some examples of that. This is like more of a childlike side. And what I found is I was resisting this side a lot of the times, and I still haven't fully brought it out into the work that I'm showing, but it's just the fact that I'm allowing myself to go to the side now and like allow that expression instead of judge it, where I'm finding a lot more freedom in the other type of work that I'm doing, because I've given myself the opportunity to explore what's going to happen in this side. And for me, it's freed up my work even more by allowing myself to have these expressions. And these expressions are also starting to like really want to make themselves known outside of just, whatever we call a quote sketchbook, or, doing something without it being shown or putting it into the main work. But it's usually those hidden things that give us information and like teach us that there's a lot more to it than just the one side. And for a long time, I was afraid if I accessed certain sides that it was going to create a conflict, so I would shut it down instead. But what I've noticed over time for myself is that when I allow what wants to come out, I am much more freer in my other work. So I would challenge you to pick something that you feel interested in, that you want to explore more of, but you haven't given yourself that opportunity because you're just judging it a lot and you're in your head. Of course, because it can just start out as a practice that you don't necessarily share, and you never know what is gonna like offset and free you into that other moment. So maybe it's a little odd, or maybe it's a little eccentric, and maybe it feels a little taboo to you. And it also could be like daring to write some kind of truth that says love lost. And then making something around that. So it's inviting the emotionality out and inviting the expression out. And it doesn't always have to be deeper, but I would say in a more raw and real way in this case, what I'm like going through, and then a childlike way. So if we want to become more childlike and more whimsical and more free or more strange even. So, it's going to depend on what it is for you when you start looking internally and addressing the sides and realizing that maybe there's something else that wants to come through, but there's been some resistance around it for whatever reason. That's the place I would encourage you to go to. Or in this case, it's too weird, right? It's a little strange, but I think it will make a great t-shirt. And a lot of these are going to be turned into t-shirts soon, which I'm excited about. And, so you never know what's going to, spark an idea. And when you dare yourself to go somewhere different, strange, odd, or what you feel like is uncomfortable and doesn't make sense, or you never know what kind of idea is going to come out of it. In this case, I was starting to incorporate text into weird mark-making expressions. And oftentimes I will engage the text in a certain kind of way. Sometimes a word can hold a memory, and then I want to incorporate that into the work. Or it can just be a commentary, which I love a good commentary, and a good question too. Or it can offer humor. So there's like many ways to look at these things and many ways to get excited and inspired and just allow ourselves to go to these places. So we can allow ourselves the opportunity to explore another side that maybe we were hiding or uncomfortable with and we're not really sure of. What I've noticed as I start to lean into expressing other sides, it starts to influence my work in a different kind of way. But before, maybe I wouldn't allow myself the opportunity to just be weird, or like I would maybe what I notice happens or can happen, not just in art or life. There could be a lot of judgment around what we're doing, and what has to make sense or does it have to make sense, like all the questioning that we can really get locked up in. But I like exploring this childlike side a lot. And it doesn't always have to make sense, I'm just giving myself the opportunity to access the energy and the emotionality and express what wants to be expressed. And sometimes it doesn't make sense, right? And I feel like even in an abstract work or in a really raw expressive drawing, we kind of can lock up in these moments. Or I might feel like it's too taboo, or what is this? Why did I do that? But ultimately it's about opening up more of the sides and the channels and allowing whatever wants to surface. And that's how I see intuition is having that mark and that moment and that experience. And not thinking as much as feeling. And we can bring ourselves to these strange moments. And allow whatever wants to surface. You really learn about a lot about judgment and perception. And sometimes like I'll hear a word or phrase and maybe I'll write it out. And sometimes I'll write it really fast. I'm just hearing the word why. So I might let it be visible, but then I also might write quickly so you can't really read it. So it becomes its own mark and expression. I'm really interested in that kind of expression and movement within letter forms and mark making and words. But I hadn't really come into this moment with a plan. And sometimes there's a silliness, so allow yourself to be absurd, allow yourself to make something silly. Think about it as like a coloring book that you're creating as you go. And just giving yourself the opportunity to explore and see what's there. Well, now what I've noticed for myself is when I start to bring in these other sides that I was trying to shut down and hide. There's a lot more freedom in my other marks, and sometimes in this strange mark making expression, I'm able to transfer that energy and the emotion sometimes. It's not like a direct experience, or I'm not always thinking about it. But I could see by doing the work that it eventually translates. And that's why I stress having a daily practice, even if it's a small sketchbook practice, or a small practice on paper. That could be loose sheets. You really can have a daily practice any way you want. Or like, I love this cheap notebook because there's no pressure there. I just stress that because you're gonna develop the relationships to your mark making materials, to your emotions, to your energy, to your intuition, and to your visual vocabulary, right? And that's gonna really start to take shape over time, and you're gonna have a record of what you do, and eventually you'll start to see your own patterns emerge. And that's how you can like track your progress. It's great to get external advice, but it's even better, in my personal opinion, to develop your own intimate vocabulary and mark making expression, and understand your materials that you love. And then, it becomes yours. Because so many people could use this, but you have developed your relationship with the way you're mark making and what's coming out and how you attack the page or not, and like that's gonna start to come forward and become yours over time. That's important. And I believe, like, in regards to when we're talking about finding a style and finding a voice and finding our expression, it's about all the colors that you love, and it's about your materials, and it's about your marks. And even though maybe we all can make the same mark, an X, but how do you make the X? And how do you bring the energy and the emotion to it? Because that will be your mark once you do the extension with it. Even though it's the same mark across time, it's still sublime and energetic in your experience of how you come to use the mark. Or maybe you don't even like that mark. That's what happens over time. You find out what is interesting and what is not, what is exciting. Oh, and you kind of keep daring yourself to go more. In the process. Thank you for being here and daring to look at another side, possibly. I hope this has inspired and encouraged you to go a little bit further, even if it's a little bit past that fear, and open that door just a little bit and see what's in there. And maybe it's scary at first, but then the more we can invite that in, the more we can start to understand, whoa, this is really where I want to be going in my art, in my life, with my creativity and creations. And I really feel better when I'm expressing what is internally true for like myself, just like yourself, right? So when you can find that relationship and that understanding for you and you alone, there's a lot more freedom in that process. And then that will free you up to keep creating and keep becoming more and more and more you.